welcome to the first iteration of Not on the Radio.
Not on the radio.
Not on the radio.
Okay.
Just conversations with artists, musicians, and thinkers at the edge.
Mm-mm.
Right? And Rent.
Okay.
This is Rent Romus. Rent Romus. Thank you for spending some time.
Sure.
And chatting, man. What's been on your mind, man?
What's been on my mind?
Yeah.
Well, that's always a loaded question. There's a lot going on, always, happening around both myself and the work that I do. So you're leaving me with an open question like that.
What's next? Or
what's next?
Yeah.
Let's see. What am I doing next? Well, I'm kind of in the middle though of trying to get the record Rogue Star out. I've completed that in terms of press mailings and half the radio, but it pretty much takes a back seat because right now I'm in the middle of Outsounding Music Summit's promotional phase and fundraising phase. So, we've got everything booked for this year, and now I'm trying to get all the components put together and coordinate the volunteers to make sure that we have, money in the bank and people in the seats and so forth. So that's been kind of the overarching thing that always comes around this time in the spring every year. Runs for about from mid-January through probably mid-May. Things are really hot and heavy on that, so it's hard for me to balance out the music plus all the regular normal things of doing the weekly series at the Lugister Gallery and the bi-weekly series at the Sim series and keeping that booked and going and moving that and then trying to play gigs. So,
I know. Well, you take on the curatorial role.
Yeah.
I was browsing your Wikipedia.
Oh, you found that?
I
yeah.
sure did.
Okay.
And I mean, it's like you've been curating stuff since pretty much high school, right?
Yeah. I started it's just like a bug in me, I guess. It just started happening. It wasn't planned. It's never been none of this has really ever been completely planned.
Yeah.
I started Outsound really because I wanted a gig.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to give me a gig.
And just to clarify, Outsound is...
okay. Well, yeah. So Outsound is the end result of me wanting a gig. And now it's a artist run. The board members are all curator artists. 10, 12 of them on the board. You don't see many. A lot of times you see them at the summit, right? But a lot of them are behind the scenes. I look to them for guidance and things like that. So a lot of times it always seems like it's just the Rent Romus show, but it's not really the Rent Romus show.
You got the community.
There's still, I'm still doing the booking and I'm still showing up to the performances and running the door and but if I need help or consultation or people have ideas, I hear from them on that. And they've been, I don't think Outsound could exist now if it wasn't for the people on the board, really. I can't do it alone. No one does anything alone. That's the great American myth, or maybe even the great Western myth, or the great human myth that people do things by themselves. Nobody does anything by themselves. It's a complete lie, perpetuated by people who want power and support and all that. But so anyway, I'm meandering. But before that, I was always putting on concerts for my own projects, pretty much, or for projects I was involved in, which is a normal. That's the gateway drug to curation.
Yeah, just
right.
Host your own
putting
events.
on shows. You host your own events.
Yeah.
You can't find anyone to host you. You can't find a place to play. So what do? You have a house concert. You
For real.
Rent a hall. That kind of thing. So
I found that the best house shows have been the most money I've ever made playing have been at
that
house
too.
shows.
That does happen. Yeah, right. Because folks feel generous and it's comfortable.
Yeah,
and
it's comfortable.
you know, there's a more of a supportive element in that.
Indeed.
Yeah. So when I was a teenager, I was a young teenager. I really wanted to be in this big band. It was like an honors big band that the teacher, a high school teacher at the time, and I was actually still in junior high school. He had started the North Area Youth Jazz Ensemble, and it was down, what was that? Los Altos, South Bay, you know, San Jose.
How old were you when this?
When he started the group, I was probably only 11 or 12 years old, but I really wanted to be in the band. So, because I had seen this group, and it was a makeup of high school and college students, and it was like the band to be in, and it was invitation only.
Right on.
Right?
Okay.
So I really, really, really wanted to be in that band. And sometime in, was it mid to early, like 83, 84, something around there, the teacher, I think his name was Dick Goodrich. I think he's passed away since then, but he got fired, so he had to leave. You know. Fired for music too. There's something very lasting in that. You know, he pretty much put his entire life and element. And when he was told he couldn't do something by the school board, he just did it anyway for the band. And of course, they fired him for that. I think he used money he wasn't supposed to use, but I don't know all the details. I was too young. But then I wanted to be in this band, but he had left. So, like all groups. All these community bands, they do tend to linger on. So the people in the group didn't really, they were like, whatever, but we'd like to still play together. So there was still some back and forth about getting together. And some people had left. You know, Sylvia Cuenca was in that band, the drummer. Some folks may know who that is. She was a drummer in that band, but she's pretty well known now, actually, in some of the jazz circles. But anyway, a lot of musicians came out of that ensemble from that time period. And so here I was wanting to be in that group. The teacher had left. The group thing was faltering. I was like, oh no. And then somehow I got a hold of, I don't remember how I got in, but I did get to like contact with someone in the group, and I was able to go, and there were a number of attempts to run the group, right? So I ended up just saying, "Yeah, I'll help you with keeping the group going." I don't know why I did that. It's so long ago, but I remember volunteering to help it continue. And then what I did was I got some of my friends, Michael Timson, Danny the Guy, who's still in San Francisco, to come in and fill in the slots of people who had also left, because half the group left when Goodrich left. And we were able to find another teacher instructor to pick it up. I can't remember his name now, but he was a teacher also. He was a friend of Timson and the Guy. So pretty much it ran for a while longer, and we did some shows and some gigs, and so pretty much so that kind of I look at that moment as the time when all of a sudden my insatiable need for public charity work for music communities and musicians and the general community to make music available began. If I go way back, that was I rose my hand, and
when was that?
That had to have been 80.
In the 80s, yeah.
4, 85. It was before college, so it had to have been because I graduated from high school in 86. So
you've been making things happen here in the area for decades.
Yeah, I guess so. I really have lost count, but it's been So because I must have been 14 or 15 years old. Yeah, at the time. Yeah.
What are some of the arcs of, I guess, the creative scene that you've witnessed in that time here in the Bay? Because I've only been here 5-6 years. and
Yeah.
just now feel like I'm sort of acclimated to the culture, or like I feel more. I love Oakland. Like my love for being here has like reached a place, but it's not. I don't know. I mean, I'm curious what you've seen over those decades.
Yeah, I think we all are in the same boat, actually, though, really. I mean, it's the artistic, music communities, because there's so many different ones and there's so many different pockets. It's kind of like the old story of the blind man and the elephant,
Tell me this story.
Yeah, one person touches the tail and says the elephant feels like, like very small, like a dog, and the other person touches the side and goes, this is as big as a wall, and then another blind man touches the nose and goes, the elephant's like a snake. I believe it's an African story, but it's a story of perception, right? Like, I do realize that I have much more of maybe a comprehension of like the communities that we're involved in, some outlier in the jazz proper communities that exist here in the Bay Area and so forth. But even that knowledge, I think, is very limited. I think it's very rich here.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here. Like I remember going on tour up the West Coast and playing in Olympia and Portland, and like certain aspects of the scene there, the cultures were so sort of more rigidly defined.
That does exist in other places, yes.
But here it's just such an intricate mesh.
Yeah.
And so much more. I mean,
and you have choices. Everyone has choices. You could be a working musician and playing flamenco music and Brazilian, samba and free jazz and punk rock, and you could do all those shows in the same week here. I think that's probably similar to say how New York. Maybe you can do that in New York and in certain aspects. And you can do that, say, maybe in Paris, like the much larger, artistically known communities. I think San Francisco Bay Area is very underappreciated for that. Same international powerhouse of artistic creation. But I do believe, though, that at least I have seen personally, there's been some interest and discovery from other international people, writers. Businesses, things like that, who are starting to figure out, like the recent review that happened with Lisa Mezzacappa's Glorious Ravage, and the main quote being that the writer was surprised and that the community there's such a rich community here because they're used to writing only about New York scene.
Well,
and there's that myth. That's a great myth. Again, the great myth of one place being and the pocket being that's where it's at, happening. Where really the truth is, it's more of a transition spot.
Right on. There's a lot. I mean, I remember seeing some shows here where I'm like, this is some of the best music in the world, and there's like 7 people here, and there's no one documenting any of it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean. So I do agree it is underappreciated.
So I think that there's a long ways to go for music communities in general here. I do think that there's a lot of international acclaim for other forms of music that exist here. But to me it's like one big continuum. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity still to be found here, and it's probably why I do keep doing what I'm doing. I don't haven't quite figured out why I do that, but
well, it's very appreciated. I'm pretty sure you booked my first gig in the Bay, probably at the luggage store. Of course, but I think that was. I remember first going there to listen to music and was like, oh yeah, like I gotta play here.
Yeah, I stumbled on the luggage store literally. I was walking down the street and I heard this music that I don't remember what it was, but I remember hearing it coming out because they used to open the windows up in the summertime. So I walked up the stairs and checked it out. I was like, well, that's neat. And then later, because I used to do that, I would walk around the city and I just find places. Like that's how I found Blondie's too. I played there a lot in the 90s and I had just walked by and heard music and started talking to the people who were working there. But I think it was not. I didn't know what Luggage Store was really until later, because I believe was it 98 or 99, Scott R. Looney, the pianist, who was here. He was running some of the music there along with, or he was working the door or something, and he said, you should come by the Luggage Store. So I was like, I've been there before, and so that really was the point where but yes, I stumbled on that place. It's just,
Yeah, I think
it's funny how those things happen.
Yeah, it's funny that the Center for New Music is down the street.
Yeah.
Right? And they're neighbors, and I mean, the Tenderloin is hard, man.
It is.
It's like,
it is. And Luggage Store is located 6th and Market, so that's like right on the border edge of Tenderloin. Like Tenderloin ends probably just a block up, officially, for what it's worth.
Sure.
But for a while there, we were also, speaking of Tenderloin, we had to move to the Luggage Store Gallery's other space there, the original space, 519 Ellis, and that is right in the heart. Yeah, but there's some good shows there too. We had some great shows there. So where's it going? I don't know where it's going. What it's doing is some beautiful things. It keeps me alive and well, I think.
Right on.
In general.
No, for real. Making music, and I mean, I like the fact that in this environment I can make music with you. I'm making music with you, people younger than me, older than me. I'm making music with a wide array of individuals who, on the surface I might not have anything in common with in a weird way, but
that's amazing.
It is amazing, and it actually really, the music really connects, like in a way where we got everything in common, but outside of the music dimension, maybe not.
Maybe not, but it is the universal language, and Albert Eiler was right about that.
Yeah. Healing force of the universe.
Yes, it is, and I've seen it work in action, and it puts people together that maybe even wouldn't really like each other at all in a social setting. Yeah, I've played with my share. I'm sure folks would play with me and didn't want to spend any time with me, but and that's fine, because the music does bridge that. Chico Freeman was saying that to me early on when we did those recordings in the early 90s. He was saying, he told me, you put aside all the racial tensions, the emotional tensions, all the things that might get in your way, meeting each other in the street. But when you're on a stage, all that goes away, and that's stuck with me pretty much right from right on then. Yeah.
Well, it's so good to listen to. Really, to listen to anyone who's willing to speak with their music is a wonderful thing, to listen to them and to communicate with them. I mean, it's like we're doing something that's more profound than we can understand. I think it's it's more is deep. To go up. To share a musical space with someone and not know what's going to happen, and
those are the best.
Yeah, I enjoy those very much. I feel freer and happier.
Yeah. No, I was really grateful to stumble in on the free improvised music community too. Speaking of playing, never even knowing what's going to happen until the moment. I mean, that was kind of what drew me in, actually. I was playing a lot of original jazz. Yeah. I was working with a group that I had for about a decade called Jazz on the Line, and that's who we recorded. That's why we had recorded with Chico Freeman in that group, and that was the last album we did. And then we were at the vanguard of the acid jazz scene, as they call it. You know, we were part of that growth. Like we came from Santa Cruz. We were working with Anna Christina is her name now. She had a different last name, but she pretty much brought the gospel R&B into the music, and then we were doing this combination of, and that was fine. That was great, but I still had a need for something else, and I didn't know what it was.
How did you find free music?
Yeah, well, I mean, I when I was a kid, I checked out. I mean, you know, nowadays, if you want music education, you'll go to YouTube.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't. There's no such thing. Nothing existed like that. We had Atari. You know, we were playing Pong, and we had like, you know, Mac 2s or whatever. So there was none of that. So the library was the point of discovery when you were growing up. So I still have all those. I taped almost half the music library for the jazz collection. And I stumbled on this. I remember Sun Ra's Volume 2, Heliocentric Circles, and I brought it home and I put it on the record player and I put the needle down. And 20 seconds later, I took the needle off and had what the hell is this? But that was I remember because later I went back to that record and went, wow, this is amazing. But I remember that point where I first listened to it and went, oh my God, that's insane. I can't listen to this. This is not music, you know, because, you know, as we grow into a music educational process, you get kind of programmed into thinking music is one way or the other. And you don't know it until after, you know, you get exposed and then your brain starts to rewire. And so that was it, though. I mean, that spark, that 20-second spark, that was the beginning of the end, so to speak, right?
That's awesome.
Because it started the process of developing, you know, however interest I had in exploring past the constructs or the prison of composed music, you know. Like it's not. It can be a prison.
It can be a prison.
That's what I mean. In terms of me feeling like I couldn't go anywhere, and so for a long time I didn't have anywhere to go. So instead it was like, hey Rent, stay inside the chords. Hey Rent, play the right notes. And you can't play that note in that chord. It's like,
that's annoying. I mean, there was when I was like in college, I thought like, I if I was going to further pursue studying music, I either had to go deeply into jazz or go deeply into classical music, neither of which I wanted to do.
Sure.
You know, and I was grateful to find Mills College, and I listened to Roscoe, and I was like, oh wow, well, I guess you can do that, and you can study that deeply. You know, study your music and how to be free with it, or how to do something that's beyond the changes. But I do still like playing changes. I mean, I can very much.
And so do I.
Yeah.
You know, I totally relate. Different maybe from I fell into it just out of pure frustration. And I wish I had a program that existed like that at the time. That would have been great. But they didn't. I mean, hell, when I went to college, that didn't. I mean, Mills is probably still happening then. But there was nobody knew about what was going on, right? So it was just me, you know, part of playing jazz in San Francisco, you know, city proper, 2 or 3, 4 times a week,
like standard stuff.
Yeah, and then working with Jazz on the Line. So we were still writing. So we were playing original composition, but it was still within the construct of chordal structure, melody, head, play a solo that sounded pretty, you know, that kind of thing. Very narrow focus, which was great, and I'm so happy that I was part of that. But the frustration was just overwhelming for the longest time, and that's when, like I said, when I because I had listened to this music at an early age, and then I found more, and so it was like, you know, it was Woody Herman, you know, to Sun Ra, you know, and everything else in between. You know, Arthur Blythe, of course. I mean, his music was so amazingly original, and yet he was also an amazing free improviser. A lot of people don't really know that, too, because of his later works, but he was involved in with Horace Tapscott and that whole scene down there in L.A. that was, speaking of underappreciated and completely ignored. You know, the Los Angeles free improvised music scene was completely ignored, especially in the 70s, you know, the 80s, you know, what? Free jazz, what's that? Or, you know, but he did all that too. So I was listening to all this stuff, and I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And here I am, you know, playing horn lines and staying within the chord, and occasionally, you know, and then, hey, don't do that, you know. So constantly being berated for not playing the way I'm supposed to play. And finally, I got so sick of it that and there were some other issues with the band. So, because it's like, you know, married to 5 people.
Yeah,
so
for real.
It just didn't work out. You know, finally it just came to a head. You know, the classic band explosion, implosion, whatever. And we were going to start. I said, screw this. I'm going to go do something else. So then I found. I was introduced to James Zitro, Cash Killian, through jazz.
Zitro's a drummer, right?
Yeah, and he lives here in the Bay Area.
Really?
He moved back from Santa Cruz. He's living here.
I saw him play with Bert Wilson.
He and Bert Bert was here too.
Really?
Bert lived here in the late '60s, early '70s. It was actually the free jazz scene here in the Bay Area was beautiful in that time period. There was so many great recordings that had come out at that time with all those folks, and Zitro was part of that. Yeah. And he was in Santa Cruz, and I had, you know, went to school in Santa Cruz, and I lived there for a while, and so I knew about Zitro, and I think he sat in with Jazz in Line once and so forth, and so then I decided I was going to put together this trio, and I'll see if Zitro wants to play, and he was interested in doing that. And I was also connected through Jazz in Flight at the time because I was in a transition point. It was like 86, 87, somewhere around there, and not 86, I'm sorry, 90, 91, 92, 93. So there was a transition between finishing school and coming back to the Bay Area. And then Jason O'Lane, who I was playing with, he's a trumpet player at the time. Some folks listening to me know his name. He helped usher in, you know, Keep Yoshi's Alive.
What's his name again?
Jason O'Lane. And he ended up working for Universal A&R, and then I think he's working for Winton right now with Jazz and Lincoln Center. You know, produced a lot of great. He's produced a lot of great records too. A lot of great top international musicians, and I worked with him. We came up in college together, and he found Jazz in Flight, who was an organization that used to present a series. See, so that again, I got involved. I said, raised my hand. Hey, I'll help out. So, and they were producing at the old Yoshi's, which used to be on Claremont. Great space, very, very, very wonderful place. And Jazz in Flight was into Arthur Blythe, Horace Tapscott, Lester Bowie, the whole Chicago jazz scene, the ACM, all of that. They were connected to that, and that was like then the whole world started opening up, you know, and got to hear a lot of Don Cherry just before he died. Great shows, you know. Met Sonny Simmons and Prince Lachey, you know. It's just amazing to see these artists and not really knowing who they were at the time, and then now realizing, you know, the connections that were there.
Yeah, a lot of connections.
Yeah, too many and all over the place. So. But I've even lost my track of thought. I'm not sure where I'm going anymore.
Yeah, I wonder where we are. But, I remember I got to hang with Bert Wilson a few times, and his his fingers were like from the horn, all the fingers were like bent crooked. Yeah, you know, they were like every finger was skewed. Yeah, and for people who don't know Bert, I mean, Bert had polio, right?
Yeah, he was living most of his life in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and he lived till pretty damn late for that.
Yeah. And in fact, I think a number of contemporary tenor players definitely were heavily influenced by Bert, but you never hear it.
Don't even know it. I mean, Bert, yeah, he was just like this nucleus of power in Olympia. Where like, like when I was in college, that's where I'd go to hear jazz, and like actually go, oh, maybe I'll play jazz, and I did for a time, but then and then I went there and played free once with this other guitarist he was sort of mentoring, and he offered his some criticism. I mean,
in his own Burt way.
Yeah, in his own. He's a nice dude.
He's a funny guy. I met him in 1993, 94 at Blondie's. He showed up because Ed Zitro brought him. Again, because they had played together in the 60s here. Bert, nice guy.
Yeah.
But his playing was, I'm still wrapping my head around his playing style, element, technical ability. I've listened to a lot of his records, the ones I have, because for someone who had been so prolific, I don't think he had as much recording as he should have had.
Sure, yeah.
He was very underappreciated. It's probably due to the ableism that exists here in this country, on top of all the other isms. It's hard for him to probably get gigs outside of his local area. Like I said, when he was living here, he was very prolific. I'm still like finding recordings with him on them that I didn't know existed.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Like when he worked with Smiley Winters here in Oakland. And of course, he did a number of records with Barbara Donald before Barbara married Sonny Simmons. And she was blazing as ever. So all those musicians really did influence me as well. It's interesting, the Burt connection.
Yeah,
because
that's cool.
I still have plans to arrange some of his music and do some with Life's Blood, actually.
Right on. That would be awesome
with my ensemble, but. I'm just trying to see if I can actually play some of those tunes first before I arrange them. Oh, I know what I was saying. So I jumped out of the whole. I got out of the whole jazz scene by creating a trio with James Zitro and Cash Killian.
And Cash was in the Sun Ra Orchestra.
Yes, he was. I didn't know that at the time. I had met Cash again through Jazz in Flight. And so it was just like I heard him play. I did so my first gig with him and Zitro was Yoshi's, and it got recorded and it was played on BET. They had a jazz program when BET first started. And I submitted a video of us playing Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch.
And it made the cut. It was on there.
I think we were the novelty at the end of the show. We were on the same. I still have that video. We were on the same show. Pat Metheny was on that show. It was basically like, here's a video submission, and then there were judges.
Weird.
And I'll never forget the look on the judge's face after our cut. So. Because everything had been so clean and perfect, and then with Killian flying and Zitro all over the freaking place. So
very cool.
Of course, we didn't win.
Yeah.
But that kind of began the Lords of Outland came. That's what the Lords of Outland became. That group that I've been, sauntering about since 1994 it was pre Lords of Outland, and that was the opportunity finally to play out out of the box, and just not worry about hitting the right notes all the time.
I know. I mean, I've been playing out of the box pretty much since I moved to the Bay, and now I'm going to New York on Monday, and I'm going to take 2 lessons with this guitarist Peter Mazza, who's very. He's playing in, but it's so good. I mean, it's just like, and it does sort of. He does these amazing arrangements of tunes, these solo fingerstyle arrangements, and I'm trying to find this happy synthesis of like. I want it to be inside out. I want it to be like, I want some thread that can bring the the listener who's not used to the chaos,
Yeah.
something they can hold on to.
Yeah.
And then when they get in the chaos, they can sort of swim around. And I haven't found that synthesis. It's like sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm either going to play in or out. And
I think we're all looking for that.
Yeah.
But, the thing about it, though, is that it's really all the same thing. It really is. The in and the out.
if it's coming from listening, then it's all good.
Yeah, I used to think that, there's the inside, and then I'm going to go outside, and I'm going to screw you out inside, I'm going to be rebellion, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to play any of this stupid crap anymore, I'm going to go play free. Right? That was the attitude.
Sure.
I think a lot of us go through, it's like a development process. We all go through the same thing. A lot of us do.
Yeah.
Some of us don't, but most of us do. We rebel against what we had known in order to discover something outside of the known, so to speak. So I did that. So after Lords of Outland, I started getting more and more and more less playing written music. And then somewhere around, and that's when I met Scott R. Looney, and I got into a luggage store. Then all of a sudden, all the music went flying out the door. And for 10 solid years, I did not read any music at all. So until about 2008, I had all these compositions I'd done before.
Yeah.
But and maybe occasionally I would take a gig, though I have music, I'd read some music. But so then the jazz scene kind of disappeared, and of course I disappeared from it, and the memories of, like, now who's in the jazz scene these days, I don't even know hardly any of them.
I don't know either. I'm curious. I feel like I should go to a session and just listen, or maybe sit in, but I'm curious myself.
I used to know a lot of them, but and there's still a few of the old leftover, I mean, my mentor and one of my early teachers, Bruce Foreman, is still quite busy in the jazz scene, and doing some great stuff. And I don't know if Larry Vukovich is still alive. But anyway, there's so many players I used to know, and some of them have passed on since. And now there's a whole new slew of players in that. But like I said, for 10 years I did no reading, and I did all free improvisation. And I challenged I went into these scenes where I would actually end up doing like drone sets, and I had no idea what the hell that was. And I have to give a whole lot of credit to Ernesto Diaz-Infante, who has not been very active as in the local community as I wish he would continue to be so. But he was taking care of his kids, having a family and all, and took a different direction. But he still is prolific in recordings, so you can still find out a lot of his recordings. And
what does Ernesto play?
He plays guitar. In various ways, and he was at the time he was in a really interesting phase where he was just he was experimenting with shamanism and hypnotic state.
Dude, shamanism. I did want to talk. I mean, I know you've done some research with Finnish shamanism, right? Yeah.
He was doing that, so he'd be like. Or sometimes, but the same. It really wasn't about playing a melody or anything, or even about. It was just about sound and rhythm, right? And then he was also. I think I also got him in there was also another phase where he was in the pure drone phase. So he asked me to be part of that, which I'm forever ever grateful. And I met a lot of people, which I would never have met in the outside world. That I played music with. It was super challenging to do that, right? Because here I am, a note-oriented instrument with a lot of jazz training.
And it's time to drone.
And now it's just, whoa, okay, right, just play a note and don't play too many notes. No, too many notes. Too many notes. Stop. Wait, no, that's still too many notes. And it's too loud. So, I mean,
I do feel like there is this sort of intuitive, like some of the phenomenon and experiences of free improvisation is arising out of like the practice of shamanism in a way, or it's like a modern evolving out of this ancient practice of entering non-ordinary states through some sort
Well,
of.
that's what music does to a lot of us.
Yeah.
I think the reason why people get so obsessed about playing music is because it induces states, whether you want it to or not.
Mhm.
You know, even the most mundane music, even I don't know,
Sure.
playing marching band music, you could still get into transport into an endorphic state of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, totally.
I remember this this one performance at Mills, and it was a large group I had put together, and we were sort of preparing for the signal flow thing, but this was like an open mic, and we were improvising. There was like 10 of us, and I called it Ascension, and I thought, okay, we're gonna mix Coltrane's Ohm with Ascension. So we like stated we read from the Gita to start the piece, and then we brought the no, and then we played for like 20 minutes, and the chaos. There was this point where the chaos was so all encompassing, but the internal sense was like in the eye of the storm of like supreme like calm and total like a peaceful attentiveness amidst like just a tidal wave of sound. This great paradoxical sort of experience.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Absolutely is.
Yeah. I think the interesting part is to try to find, and you were saying this earlier in your own musical discovery, is to try to find that bridge to bring in the listener into that same space. That's, I think, where the challenge lies. That's why there's all this compartmentalization, because there's these two experiences, and the audience experience, I think, is less connected to the performing experience. And so you've got more compartments in the listener's experience, because it's coming from the outside in, and then the performer is from the outside, going from the outside from the inside to the outside. So there's so trying to find that bridge. That really is key. I think a lot of us are still searching for, and some of us maybe have come to it.
Well, I think that's why like the Sun Ra Orchestra would go out into the crowd and lead the marching through the crowd.
Right.
And breaking the fourth wall, etc.
That's true.
Somehow getting closer to.
And sometimes that works.
Yeah, sometimes when it works, it really works.
I think it depends on also the receptiveness of the people in the room too. You know, I've seen various experiments in that area, especially at a luggage store. Many attempts. Some worked, some didn't. The
dynamic of listener to performer.
Yes.
It's a I don't know, it's interesting to see. Like, I've seen some performers where the music is really good, but when it comes to actually the piece is over, now you have to interact with the audience. They're a lot of performers I've seen are so reserved and sort of, they're not open. They're only open when they're making the music, and when they sort of close themselves in when you got to communicate with them with your words, and just even to say hello or create some sort of, you can call it banter, but you're offering that bridge of like, we just went to Saturn, and but we're here on Earth, and it's good to be with you. You know? So that's really always the challenge, and I think we're all trying to still, no matter what position we are, what place we are in our musical endeavors, we're all trying to find that connection. Yeah, just some way to connect for real.
Yeah, even if it's to 2 people or 20,000 people.
Etc. I know. I know.
And to hope that the connection is as genuine as possible too. So that's the challenge. But So didn't do that for. So So I skipped. I've been skipping around a lot. But 10 years of no reading, and then what I was trying to get to is then I started writing music again. And I started the Life's Blood project in 1999 with the Danish drummer Stephen Passpor and Jonas Vestergaard, and we did that first record, and then nothing, and then a decade goes by, and I thought, I wouldn't mind reading some music again. So, and the interesting thing was that the stress that I used to have about reading music, worrying about the chord structure, all that, is gone.
That's cool.
I don't care anymore.
I like the 10 years of no writing. It's you're like reaffirming the oral tradition.
Yeah,
you know,
and realizing it's not about the written piece of music, it's about the music, right? But when you're brought up to believe that music is only written and it has to be structured, then and you're not feeling happy about it, then you think there's something wrong with you. There was nothing wrong with what I was doing. It was just there was something wrong with me trying to force myself to do something that I didn't want to do at the time.
Sure.
And not to be, and so my energy was being taken away from the music and put into the technical theory or reading behind it. That was taking away from the music. It was, so I was not putting 100% into the music. I was only putting maybe 50% in the music. So when I stopped reading, I had another 50% to throw into the music, and so I was just playing music and making music with others of some form or kind or whatever, creating sound, tone, whatever you want to call it. Create instantaneous structures, things like that, and feeling joy. And that's why I did it for so long, because I felt happy. It was like, oh, I don't have any stress. I gotta go play a gig, and when I leave, I feel good. And nobody's gonna turn around and start criticizing me because I didn't play the right note or I missed the head. None of that. It's stupidity, right? So then come back into it. And all that time of just focusing on the music, reading music down didn't matter anymore because I didn't care if I hit the wrong note anymore. And here's the interesting part. I don't have as much problem reading as I used to have, for what it's worth. I'm not perfect at it.
I'm not much of a reader.
I'm not a studio artist, but before, now, because I'd freeze up because I'd be worried. You gotta play this. Don't care. You know what? I'll make up a note and fit it in there if it works for me. That's what I do now. Sometimes it's not even about the notes on the as much as it is about fitting it into the tonal structure of what was happening.
No, I know what you mean.
Occasionally, I try not to do that, but it does happen.
Well, I look forward to playing with you at Jam at the Barn.
Oh yeah,
right? Like two or 3 years ago, Vinny Golia came and he did a large ensemble thing.
Oh, he did,
and he wrote all this stuff that was like impossible to play.
Of course,
it was like no one's gonna really be able to play this.
He does that,
and then he's just like, do your best,
right?
And just go, make sense, do something with it,
right? Make it musical.
Yeah, make it musical, and things were out of people's ranges, and it's like this is physically impossible, but
yes,
try.
Right, but again, is if you don't let the music take the written music not take over.
Yeah,
and it's just a map, but you still have to find your way from point A to point B. And if you end up going around something or on something or walking more paces, fine. You still get to that point B. And that's really what it's about. It's making the journey complete as opposed to worrying about how you're getting there before you go there.
Yeah, whatever you can do to foster that experience of a musical. I like a musical journey. I mean, that's why going into any performance not really having any sense of what's going to happen, I find really rewarding and satisfying. And yet at the same time, I can really appreciate a sculpted piece of music, when I'm practicing Bach. I love to practice Bach. The stuff is so perfect.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
totally.
But then when I thought I was going to be a jazz player, it only took 10 seconds to realize this is not going to satisfy my soul. This is not going to really, this is not the whole deal for me. Yeah. So I have to learn how to smash my guitar and
there's so many different ways of doing that. And then the thing is, you might find, at least I found, that playing jazz now is much more rewarding than it ever was. It wasn't nearly as rewarding as it was in the 90s as it is now. And I think all those years of working in free improvisation has completely uplifted me past the worries.
Yeah, that's cool. One time Nav and I led a free improvisation workshop at the University of Sacramento, and it was like with the jazz ensemble.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, some of the guys were really uptight.
Sure. Right, because it's scary.
Yeah,
it's really scary to put your music away.
Yeah.
Because that's like, that's what I'm saying, the construct of what you think the way music's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And now it's just you. Now it's just you and your listening and your response. And people, some guys it was great because some were really into it and really appreciative. Sure. And others were almost standoffish, like very threatened.
Of course. I'm not much maybe as polarizing, but I did something over at Chris Tyner teaches at
where is it?
Well, look up the great trumpet player Chris Tyner, who's a colleague of mine. He teaches at the community college in Bakersfield.
Okay,
there we go. Uh-huh. And he was having a few of us come in and do like Vinny play, So and a bunch of other improvisers came in, and so he had me come down. Lords of Outland. We came in there and played a set of all free improvised music, and then the big band came in, and they got their giant folders, the big ones, right? The ones that almost cover your face when you're reading, and they're because they got a big concert. Actually, they were doing a Sun Ra piece.
That's cool.
So they're all working on this, and they're doodling, and they're playing, and then I brought different techniques, like Pauline Olivero's piece, some things, Josh Allen's large ensemble directed improvisation stuff, direct your own big band stuff from Matt Davignon. So I took a bunch of different elements from people here, and I brought it to them. And the first thing I said to them was, "Okay, now put away music. You're not going to need it. And what you were just doing now, you're going to do more of that, but it's not going to be just indiscriminate playing." And people are like, "Okay, whatever music, what are we doing?" It's like, okay, now we're going to do this. So I started with the Pauline Olivero's piece because that's the way to get people into listening to each other.
Yeah.
And by the end, I had them directing each other.
That's cool.
The kids, they were all of a sudden they started realizing, they started asking questions like, we can do this anywhere? Like, yes, you can do this in your own garage with your friends. You don't need to do it here. You could just you don't need your music. And then by the 3 or 4 of them, I had director colleagues. That just opened up the door.
That's awesome.
And all of a sudden, they realized, we can do this. But they were all of them were probably, most of them were like under 20. And they had never experienced that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I remember, like, Jennifer Wilsey told me once, like, how, like, it wasn't until college that, like, some of her teachers really put emphasis on listening. And not, like, ear training listening, but actually just being responsive and receptive to the immediacy of the sonic environment. And how that is sort of, like, not taught. I mean, I wasn't really introduced to really opening my listening until later on. So when I'm like teaching kids, we'll have periods where I'm like, okay, I'll do this game with kids where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna hold down the damper pedal on the piano, I'm gonna smash a chord, and then you gotta tell me when that sound disappears. And so we'll listen to the fade of the sound going. And 90% of the time, I've had kids literally raise their hand when the sound is like, and it's like, no, like listen closer, and we do it again and again until they really hear it just disappear.
That's good.
I think it is good. Getting young kids to listen.
Yeah. Well, that's really where I think it needs to start. That's not. It's more common now than it was.
Sure. Yeah.
40 years ago. It's a good thing that that free listening and free improvisation has become more in the educational scene. I think as long as it stays true to its form, it's like you're saying, like just giving them the opportunity to listen. I think some people, pioneers like Pauline really have laid the groundwork for us to not let the music become classified.
Right on.
Because that's always the danger, right?
Sure.
That's what happened to jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz is struggling right now because it's become overtly classified.
Well, yeah, if you compartmentalize or turn it into an ideology of some sort of creative ideology or
Well, it's unfortunate, but because jazz was a popular music at one point, it comes with that baggage.
yeah.
But the good news is that, for the lack of better terminology, non-idiomatic free improvisation doesn't have that history of being marketed to a popular.
I don't know
culture.
how it could be in a weird way. I mean,
The industry tried.
really,
That's why we know who. Well, in my opinion,
like we know who Albert Ayler is and stuff. I mean,
No. The industry tried. It was an experiment called Electra Nunsuch Records, and John Zorn was on that, and Tom Waits was on that, and Laurie Anderson was on that, and so it was like
it didn't work or it didn't take
well,
off.
it worked. Obviously, we know who all those musicians are. They are world famous, but from an industry standpoint, it was a failure, right?
No, it's yeah.
In terms of the millions of dollars maybe not made.
Yeah.
By trying to make that music popular.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It's not in Western culture it will never be accepted like the Popatronic 5000, as I call it.
What is
the
Popatronic 5000?
That's what I call it. Yeah. Like the thing that the robots that create the robotic music that now everyone's force fed to listen to, from a music industry standpoint.
Yeah.
Where the musicians are barely musicians, they're usually just cardboard props practically, with a computerized voice controlled music that's created based on some kind of computer programmed survey that was taken of 14-year-old kids across the nation. I mean, seriously, there's absolutely no music going on there anymore, and that's an interesting thing how it's become that. But what we're doing cannot be quantified in that fashion. It can be commandeered. It can be put into things that are more popular, but it will still stand on its own.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That's why I love it so much. It really, it will never fit. And
and I mean, why is that? I mean, I feel like for non-idiomatic free improvisation to become something more accessible and understood, you would need people. Your average person. I mean, they were in the society at large. We'd have to be we'd have to be more communicative as a people. More like the people.
Well, we could go into economics on that and cultural structure, and I think it all comes down to how we're structured as an empire. I mean, it is. We live in an empire. That's what we live in here in the United States.
Yeah.
So that element of control, of marketing, it all comes down to education and construct.
Okay.
Right? So that's why, even though you're folks like yourself and are bringing the music to these kids in terms of letting them freely express themselves, all the other forces are the opposite of that.
Sure.
So
sure.
All the other forces say, this is the way to do it. This is point A, point B, point C, point 6, point 2, and so on. You're going to follow this structure, and if you don't, then you suck, or you're going to go to jail, or you're going to be less of a person.
You'll be a failure.
Right, you'll be a failure, and you won't make any money, and blah 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 blah. So what you're doing is I think what we do is a service to the great onslaught, the wave of control that exists everywhere. And I don't mean control like a totalitarian fascist control. I mean control in terms of societal norms.
Sure. Just the media shaping perception. Yeah. And so much media is garbage, and so much perception is garbage perception. Sure. Yeah. So when you present some vibrations that are they're gonna change. They sort of confront. It confronts and destabilizes norms of societal perception, because is so complex and interweaving so many diverse facets of sound and sense and people that that's what I mean, it's like I used to think, if you were like to hear Coltrane later in his life live, it's like you either have to like fully deal with the reality of the music, or you have to get out of the room, because it's like it's there to like wake you up. Like, this is here to like really wake you up, and if you're not in a place where you can deal with that, like you can't sort of sit there and be hypnotized. You have to either be there with it or probably leave the room, because it's too much to deal with. And I think that maybe that sometimes it is a good sign you see people leave the room during a performance. Or like,
well, at least they got a reaction. I mean, that's
and I don't want to like shock value, not a shock. I mean, I'm not trying to shock people or trying to unsettle people, but I think when the music is speaking truthfully, it can be very unsettling.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yes. I mean, there's been many historical constructs of that happening throughout
again and again and again. And then what is interesting is then it, like what happened with Stravinsky.
Think of Rite of Spring.
Yeah, now it's like that shit sounds like the most boring stuff.
Yeah, it's so cute, but it caused riots. I mean, so yeah, you're right. So I think that that's the beauty of what we're involved in, is that it does stand the test of time in terms of it is timeless.
Yeah, it's prehistoric.
People don't realize. They think, oh, that's so weird and new. I've never heard anything like that. I'm like, it's been around since the dawn of living human or whatever, of beings, of crows playing with rocks on the beach.
Agreed. I dig that. I dig that very much. It isn't a new...
No, it's not new.
It's new in the sense that it's sort of... I feel like it honestly does propel... it just propels the development of the collective human psyche in a way. Like you're a mammal, you're playing with novel features and having novel experiences that have never happened before.
That's true.
But that is an old thing to like. I was thinking like what that first moment when some ancestor of ours made a mouth sound and their other fellow their fellow sitting there next to them made a meaning out of that mouth sound. What a pivotal moment that was. And then when we share that with a musical moment, we're like, oh, that sound, I get that sound. I've never even heard that sound, but I know what he means.
Exactly.
That's a good thing.
And that's key right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good thing we continue to do what we're doing, no matter, even if we end up playing for one or two people, in the room. I mean, that's what keeps me going, is realizing that it has a much more deeper importance than just reaching physically into or translating into, oh, we had a full house tonight.
Sure.
More like we had 5 people and they were intently listening and they were really happy when they left. Oh, that's good. Then I'm happy too. And I was happy too when I was doing that kind of thing. When you have that experience where you're happy what you're doing and people who are there enjoyed listening to what you were doing, as opposed to 500 people sitting at tables drinking beer and talking to their friends while you're playing. So it's just
not as rich as
there's no experience there. It's just you're there as a live jukebox and people are socializing with their buddies. It's not really a performance, so it's not really a connection either. So so there's a lot going on.
Would you like to play? I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, where are we? We're 40. Oh, we're an hour in.
Well, whatever.
We're an hour. Why don't?
Lots of editing.
Yeah, let's play a bit. Let's play a bit.
All right.
And we're back. Nice to play with you, man.
Always good.
Yeah, always good. Any final thoughts or anything on your mind, like closing statements or whatever? Say goodbye to the show. I mean,
well, I appreciate you having me come out here and
dude,
be on
it's
your
so
inaugural
yeah,
podcast, video,
yeah.
blog system.
Thing, whatever it is. It's really good to have you, man.
Not on the radio.
Yeah, not on the radio. I guess that's the title. I guess that'll be the.
That's a great title.
It works.
I
Right?
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And hopefully those who have watched this have gotten something out of it.
I hope so. Yeah.
And keep on exploring. That's what I gotta say.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just I and many others are really grateful for everything you do in this community and helping the music happen, helping young musicians like myself grow and have opportunities to play and learn. It's yeah, we're really grateful.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for doing this, and yeah, I look forward to more music down the road.
Me too.
Right on.
All right.
We out.